The transport ship Vorithek drifted through the void like a metallic coffin, carrying the dead to their final resting place. Inside its cramped cargo hold, 237 beings from across the galaxy sat in silence, each knowing they would never see their home worlds again. The Galactic Penal Authority had spoken their sentence: life imprisonment on Kepler 442c, an asteroid mining facility orbiting a dying red dwarf star. Among the prisoners sat Marcus Chun, a 34-year-old human engineer who had been caught smuggling medical supplies to a quarantine colony. His crime was compassion, his punishment eternal exile. Unlike most of his fellow inmates, Marcus possessed something that would prove invaluable in the dark days ahead: an unshakable belief that every problem had a solution, and that humanity's greatest strength was its refusal to accept the impossible. The ship's artificial gravity hummed beneath their feet as Warden Zalex, a towering Vorthan with scales that gleamed like polished emerald, entered the hold. His four arms gestured dramatically as he began his traditional speech to new arrivals. "Welcome to your new home," Zalex announced, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "Kepler 442c is not a prison in the traditional sense. It is a mining operation where you will work until you die. There are no appeals, no paroles, no hope of rescue. The asteroid contains rare elements essential to galactic civilization, and you will extract them." Marcus studied the warden carefully, noting the way his secondary arms twitched when he mentioned the mining quotas. There was something the warden wasn't telling them, something that made even this hardened administrator nervous. "The work is dangerous," Zalex continued. "The asteroid's core is unstable, and cave-ins are common. Life support is minimal, food is rationed, and medical care is basic at best. Many of you will not survive your first year. This is not a threat. It is a statistical fact." A Zalarian female near Marcus began to weep, her crystalline tears falling like diamonds to the metal floor. Others sat in stunned silence or muttered prayers to gods who had seemingly abandoned them. Marcus, however, found himself analyzing the warden's words for useful information. The Vorithek shuddered as it began its final approach to the asteroid. Through the small porthole windows, the prisoners could see their destination: a roughly spherical rock about 50 kilometers in diameter, pockmarked with mining tunnels and dotted with atmospheric domes. Solar collectors stretched across its surface like metallic spider webs, and a single space elevator connected the mining levels to a small orbital platform. "One final warning," Zalex said, his voice dropping to a more ominous tone. "Do not attempt escape. There are no ships here capable of interstellar travel. The nearest inhabited system is 47 light-years away. Even if you somehow reached orbit, you would die slowly in the vacuum of space. The only way off this rock is in a body bag." As the transport ship docked with the asteroid's receiving platform, Marcus made mental notes about everything he observed. The docking mechanism was standard Galactic Authority design. The power systems appear to be fusion-based, likely using hydrogen extracted from ice deposits. The asteroid's rotation provided minimal artificial gravity, maybe 1/10 standard. The prisoners were herded through a series of decontamination chambers and processing stations. Each was assigned identification number, a work detail, and a sleeping pod in one of the underground dormitories. Marcus became prisoner 7739, assigned to Deep Mining Crew Sigma, with a bunk in dormitory level 5. His first glimpse of the living quarters shocked even his prepared mind. The dormitory was little more than a carved-out cavern with dozens of sleeping pods arranged in rows. Each pod was barely large enough for one person, with a thin mattress, a storage compartment, and basic life support connections. The air smelled of recycled atmosphere, industrial lubricants, and unwashed bodies. Marcus's pod neighbor turned out to be an elderly Krillian named Torvin, whose multiple eyes had grown dim with age and despair. The old being had been on the asteroid for 12 years, longer than most prisoners survived. "Fresh meat," Torvin croaked, his translator device rendering his words in standard galactic. "You have that look, still thinking there's hope. Give a month. The rock breaks everyone eventually." "What kind of work do we do here?" Marcus asked, settling into his cramped space. Torvin's laugh was bitter. We dig. We extract rare earth elements, crystalline matrices, and heavy metals. The tunnels go deep, deeper than they should. Sometimes we find things that shouldn't exist. What do you mean? The old Krillian glanced around nervously. Strange artifacts. Old technology. The wardens confiscate everything, but word spreads. This asteroid isn't natural, human. It's a ship. A very old ship. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. A ship? How big? 50 kilometers. Maybe bigger. We've only mined about 30% of it. The deepest levels are off limits, even to the guards. They say the central core contains something valuable enough to justify this entire operation. The conversation was interrupted by the harsh blare of work sirens. Throughout the dormitory, prisoners began stirring from their pods, preparing for another shift in the mines. Marcus watched as beings from dozens of species gathered their meager possessions and shuffled toward the elevators that would take them to their assigned work areas. Better get moving, Torvin advised. Being late for your first shift is a good way to end up in solitary confinement. Or worse. Marcus followed the crowd to the elevator banks, where guards with energy weapons sorted the prisoners into work groups. The guards were mostly Vorthans like the warden, with a few humans and other species mixed in. They wore environmental suits and carried themselves with the casual brutality of beings accustomed to absolute power. Deep Mining Crew Sigma consisted of 20 prisoners and 2 guards. They descended nearly 3 kilometers into the asteroid's interior, traveling through a maze of natural caverns and artificially carved tunnels. Emergency lights provided minimal illumination, and the air grew noticeably thinner as they went deeper. The mining site was a vast chamber filled with exposed veins of rare metals and crystalline formations. Prisoners worked with basic hand tools and small mining lasers, carefully extracting materials while avoiding the unstable rock formations overhead. The work was backbreaking, dangerous, and mind-numbing. Marcus was paired with a young Zalarian named Kira, whose crime had been protesting her planet's forced annexation by the Galactic Authority. Despite her circumstances, she maintained an optimistic outlook that reminded Marcus of his younger sister. First day is always the hardest, Kira said as she showed Marcus how to operate the mining laser. The trick is to work steadily, but not too fast. The guards get suspicious if you exceed quotas, and the other prisoners get angry if you fall too far behind. As they worked, Marcus studied the chamber's geology with growing fascination. The rock formations were definitely not natural. Geometric patterns were visible in the exposed surfaces, and some of the crystalline deposits showed clear signs of artificial cultivation. This wasn't just an asteroid. It was the remains of a massive technological artifact. During their brief meal break, Marcus managed to examine several pieces of extracted material more closely. Mixed in with the standard rare earth elements were fragments of what appeared to be advanced circuitry, made from materials he couldn't identify. When he mentioned this to Kira, she glanced around nervously. "Don't ask too many questions," she whispered. "Last prisoner who got too curious about the deep excavations disappeared. Guards said he tried to escape, but nobody believed it. There's something down here they don't want us to know about." The work shift lasted 14 hours, with only 2 breaks for food and water. By the time they returned to the dormitories, Marcus's hands were raw and bleeding despite the basic gloves they provided. His back ached from hunching over the mining equipment, and his lungs burned from breathing the recycled air. As he lay in his pod that night, Marcus's mind raced with possibilities. This asteroid was clearly more than it appeared to be. The fragments of advanced technology, the geometric patterns in the rock, the restricted deep levels, it all pointed to one conclusion. They weren't just mining an asteroid. They were excavating an ancient spacecraft. But if that was true, then the ship's engines might still be functional. Navigation systems could be intact. And if Marcus could find a way to access the restricted areas, he might discover something that could change everything. The next morning brought a new horror. During the daily prisoner count, 3 beings were missing from dormitory level 5. The guards claimed they had attempted escape and been killed by the asteroid's automated defense systems. Their bodies were never recovered, and their personal effects were redistributed among the remaining prisoners. Marcus received a journal from one of the deceased, a Terran anthropologist named Dr. Sarah Kim, who had been imprisoned for publishing unauthorized research about the Galactic Authority's historical cover-ups. Her final entries painted a disturbing picture of what she had discovered in the deepest mining levels. The journal was written in Old Earth Korean, which Marcus could read thanks to his multicultural upbringing. Dr. Kim had found evidence of advanced propulsion systems buried in the asteroid's core, along with what appeared to be a massive computer database containing star charts for the entire galaxy. Her final entry was dated 3 days ago. "I found it," she had written. "The ship's central control room is intact, hidden behind a collapsed section in level 20. The power systems are still functional after who knows how many thousands of years. This vessel could travel faster than any ship in the current galactic fleet. But the Wardens know. They've been systematically eliminating anyone who gets too close to the truth. I have to find a way to—" The entry ended abruptly, with what looked like blood stains on the page. Marcus closed the journal and looked around the dormitory. How many others had discovered pieces of the truth? How many had died to keep the secret buried? The Galactic Authority wasn't just using them as slave labor. They were using the prisoners as expendable archaeologists, digging deeper and deeper into the ancient ship while eliminating anyone who learned too much. But Marcus had advantages that the previous discoverers lacked. His engineering background helped him understand the technological implications of what they were excavating. His human stubbornness made him unwilling to accept that escape was impossible. And, most importantly, he was beginning to form a plan. If this asteroid really was a massive ancient starship, then somewhere in its depths were the engines that had once carried it across the galaxy. Those engines might still work. The ship's navigation computers might still contain star charts showing routes to distant worlds. And if Marcus could somehow access the restricted levels and reactivate the ship's systems, he might be able to do something that no one believed possible. He might be able to turn the entire asteroid into an escape vehicle. The challenge would be enormous. He would need to avoid the guards' attention while conducting his research. He would need allies among the prisoners, beings willing to risk their lives for a chance at freedom. He would need to access restricted areas without being detected. And, most importantly, he would need to reactivate technology that had been dormant for millennia. But, as Marcus drifted off to sleep in his cramped pod, surrounded by the sounds of 200 desperate beings dreaming of home, he felt something that had been absent since his capture: hope. The Galactic Authority had made a mistake when they sent him to this place. They thought they were sending him to die in an asteroid mine. Instead, they had given him access to the most advanced spacecraft ever discovered. And Marcus Chun, human engineer and eternal optimist, was going to steal it 0.3 weeks into his imprisonment. Marcus had established a routine that allowed him to explore the asteroid while avoiding suspicion. He volunteered for maintenance duties, traded his food rations for access to restricted tools, and cultivated relationships with prisoners who had been working the deeper levels for years. Each day brought new pieces of the puzzle. The ancient ship was massive beyond anything in current galactic civilization. Its hull was composed of an unknown alloy that had remained intact for thousands of years despite constant mining operations. The internal structure followed no recognizable architectural pattern, with corridors that curve in impossible directions and chambers that seemed to exist in folded space. Marcus's breakthrough came when he befriended Gex, a Thalorian engineer who had been imprisoned for industrial sabotage. Thalorians possessed natural electromagnetic senses that allowed them to perceive power flows and electronic systems invisible to most other species. Gex had spent 5 years mapping the asteroid's hidden energy networks. "The ship is still alive," Gex whispered during a meal break in the deepest accessible mining level. His tentacle-like appendages twitched with nervous excitement as he sketched patterns in the dust. "Power flows through channels we cannot see, following pathways that predate our civilization by millennia. The engines are dormant but functional. The navigation systems are intact. Someone designed this vessel to survive anything. Marcus studied the crude diagrams Gex had drawn. How do we access the control systems? That is the problem. The ship's security protocols are still active. It recognizes us as intruders and seals off critical areas when we approach. But there might be a way. The ship's builders left maintenance protocols, back doors designed for emergency access. I have detected them in the deepest levels, but reaching them requires passing through sections the guards have declared off-limits. The opportunity came sooner than Marcus expected. A cave-in in level 18 trapped 12 miners and damaged a major power conduit. The guard were forced to send repair teams into previously restricted areas, and Marcus volunteered for the dangerous assignment. Working alongside Kira and 3 other prisoners, Marcus descended to depths no condemned being had seen in years. The maintenance shafts were narrow, cramped, and filled with the hum of alien technology. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on walls covered with symbols that seemed to shift and change when observed directly. The damaged power conduit was located near what appeared to be a major junction point. While the other prisoners worked to repair the immediate damage, Marcus slipped away to explore the adjacent passages. What he found made his breath catch in his throat. Hidden behind a collapsed section was a chamber filled with control interfaces unlike anything in current galactic technology. Crystalline displays showed incomprehensible data streams, and control surfaces responded to touch with gentle pulses of light. At the center of the chamber stood a pedestal holding what appeared to be a navigation database, a sphere of liquid metal that contained star charts for the entire known galaxy and regions beyond. Marcus approached the central console carefully, remembering Gex's warnings about the ship's security systems. The displays flickered as he drew near, and text appeared in a script that seemed to adapt itself to his understanding. Somehow, impossibly, the ancient ship was learning to communicate with him. "Welcome, Constructor," appeared on the main display in perfect standard galactic. "Emergency protocols have been activated. Ship status, critically damaged. Primary mission, incomplete. Crew complement, 0. Auxiliary personnel detected. Authorization required for system access." Marcus stared at the text, his mind racing. The ship was treating him as auxiliary personnel rather than an intruder. Perhaps his engineering background triggered some kind of recognition protocol. He placed his hand on what appeared to be an identity scanner. State designation and authorization code, the display prompted. Marcus took a deep breath. Marcus Chun, Chief Engineer, Emergency Protocols. The scanner pulsed with warm light as it analyzed his biometric signature. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, text appeared that made Marcus's heart race. Emergency authorization accepted. Genetic markers consistent with builder auxiliary protocols. Limited system access granted. Warning: ship integrity at 14%. Estimated time to critical failure unknown. Recommend immediate evacuation or extensive repairs. The implications hit Marcus like a physical blow. The ship's builders had been human, or at least closely related to humanity. These ancient explorers had traveled between the stars when his own species was still learning to work metal. And somehow, their technology recognized him as one of their descendants. Additional displays activated around the chamber, showing the ship's current status. The massive vessel had been designed as an exploration craft, capable of traveling between galaxies and establishing colonies on distant worlds. Its current damage was the result of a battle fought in space thousands of years ago, followed by millennia of gradual decay. But the critical systems remained functional. The faster-than-light drive was dormant, but reparable. The life support systems could be reactivated. The navigation database contained routes to star systems beyond the current galactic borders. With proper repairs, this ancient vessel could become the most advanced ship in known space. Marcus began downloading everything he could access to a small data storage device he had cobbled together from mining equipment. Star charts, technical specifications, repair procedures. Information that would be invaluable if he could somehow organize an escape attempt. His exploration was interrupted by shouting from the main repair area. The other prisoners were calling for him, and he could hear guards approaching. Marcus quickly shut down the displays and slipped back through the collapsed section to rejoin his work crew. "Where were you?" Kira demanded as he appeared beside her. The guard were asking questions. "Exploring the damage," Marcus replied, showing her the genuine injuries he had sustained crawling through the debris. "The power conduit extends further than we thought. We might be able to reroute around the damaged sections." His technical explanation satisfied the guards, and the repair crew was allowed to return to the upper levels. But Marcus's mind remained focused on what he had discovered. The ancient ship could be made operational, but doing so would require extensive repairs and a coordinated effort involving dozens of prisoners. That evening, Marcus began recruiting allies for his impossible plan. He started with beings who had already shown signs of desperation or rebellion, prisoners who had nothing left to lose. Torvin, the old Krillian who had been his first contact. Gex, the Thalorian engineer who understood the ship's power systems. Dr. Voss, a human physicist who had been imprisoned for refusing to develop weapons technology. Each recruitment was dangerous. The guards monitored all prisoner conversations, and talking about escape was punishable by death. Marcus had to be subtle, feeling out potential allies through casual conversations about hypothetical scenarios and technical discussions. His breakthrough came when he shared Dr. Kim's journal with a small group of trusted prisoners. The dead anthropologist's research provided crucial context for what they were dealing with. This wasn't just an ancient ship. It was a vessel built by humanity's predecessors, designed to carry its crew beyond the boundaries of known space. "You're talking about stealing a 50-kilometer Starship," Dr. Voss said during a whispered conversation in the dormitory's maintenance area. "Even if the technology worked, we have no idea how to operate it. We could end up drifting in interstellar space for centuries. Better than dying slowly in these tunnels," Gex replied, his electromagnetic senses detecting approaching guards. "The ship's systems are designed for emergency operation. If we can reach the central control room, the automated systems should be able to handle basic navigation." Marcus pulled out the data he had downloaded from the ancient computer systems. "I've been studying the technical specifications. The ship's main engines are still functional, but they need extensive repairs. The life support systems can sustain about 5,000 beings. The navigation database contains routes to unclaimed worlds beyond Galactic Authority control." Kira leaned forward, her crystalline features reflecting hope for the first time since Marcus had known her. "How many people would we need?" "At least 50 to handle basic repairs and system operations. Maybe 100 to do it safely. The ship's automation can handle most functions, but we need beings who understand technology, logistics, and basic engineering." Over the following weeks, Marcus's conspiracy grew carefully. Each new recruit was thoroughly vetted and gradually introduced to the scope of the plan. They included beings from across the galaxy, Zalarian crystal singers who could interface with the ship's harmonic systems, Vorthan technicians who understood advanced metallurgy, human physicists, and engineers, Thalorian electromagnetic specialists. The group established a complex communication network using mining equipment modified for long-range transmission. They created detailed maps of the asteroid's internal structure, identifying key systems that would need to be captured or disabled during their escape attempt. Most importantly, they began stockpiling resources and equipment that would be essential for the massive repair effort required to make the ship operational. Marcus's engineering background proved invaluable in planning the technical aspects of their escape. The ship's main engines required a careful startup sequence that would take several hours to complete. Life support systems needed to be tested and calibrated before risking the lives of hundreds of prisoners. Navigation computers had to be updated with current galactic positioning data. But the most challenging aspect was the sheer scale of the operation. They weren't just planning to escape from prison. They were planning to steal an entire world and turn it into a functional starship. The logistics were staggering. "We need to take control of the entire asteroid simultaneously," Marcus explained during one of their clandestine planning sessions. "The guards have orbital support platforms and communication arrays. If we don't neutralize them quickly, They'll call for reinforcements from the nearest Galactic Authority base. Torvin, despite his age, had become one of their most valuable intelligence assets. His years on the asteroid had given him detailed knowledge of guard routines, security protocols, and administrative procedures. The guard rotation changes every 6 hours. There's a 15-minute window during shift change when surveillance in the deep levels is minimal. That's our best opportunity to access the restricted areas. Gex have been mapping the ship's internal power distribution system, identifying critical nodes that would need to be captured or protected during their escape attempt. The main power core is located in level 25, deeper than any mining operation has gone. If we can reach it and reactivate the ship's primary systems, we might be able to take control of life support and artificial gravity throughout the entire vessel. Dr. Voss had been working on the most dangerous aspect of their plan, determining whether the ship's faster-than-light drive could be safely activated. The energy output will be enormous. If we miscalculate, we could destroy the ship and everyone on it. But according to these ancient technical specifications, the drive system includes multiple safety protocols designed to prevent catastrophic failure. As their plans became more detailed, Marcus realized they were attempting something that had never been tried in galactic history. They were going to transform an asteroid mining facility into a generation ship capable of carrying its entire population to freedom among the stars. The technical challenges were immense. The political implications were staggering. The Galactic Authority would never allow hundreds of convicted criminals to escape with one of the most advanced ships ever discovered. They would send fleets to hunt down the escaped prisoners, and the conflict could escalate into a galaxy-wide war. But as Marcus looked around at his fellow conspirators, beings from dozens of worlds who had been condemned to die in these tunnels, he knew they had no choice. The alternative was a slow death mining the ship that could carry them to freedom. The rebellion was no longer a matter of if, but when. And Marcus Chund, the human engineer who refused to accept the impossible, was going to lead them home. The uprising began at shift change on day 127 of Marcus's imprisonment. 219 prisoners across 17 work crews moved with synchronized precision, executing a plan that had taken months to develop and only one opportunity to implement successfully. Marcus led a team of 12 engineers and technicians into the deepest accessible levels of the asteroid. Their target was the ship's main power core, located behind heavily sealed blast doors that had remained unopened for millennia. Using tools smuggled from the mining operations and explosives created from industrial chemicals, they began cutting through barriers that had protected the ancient ship's heart. Meanwhile, other teams moved to secure critical positions throughout the facility. Gex led a group of electromagnetic specialists to the communication arrays, planning to disable the guard's ability to call for reinforcements. Kira commanded a team tasked with capturing the life support control room, ensuring they could maintain breathable atmosphere during the chaotic transition. Dr. Voss and his physicists headed for the navigation control center, where they would attempt to update the ship's star charts with current galactic positioning data. The guards were caught completely off guard. For over a decade, the prisoners had been a broken, demoralized population focused only on survival. The idea that they might organize a coordinated rebellion was inconceivable to the Galactic Authority administrators who saw them only as disposable labor. Warden Zalex was in his orbital command station when the first alarms began sounding. Reports flooded in from across the asteroid. Prisoners had abandoned their workstations, guards were being overwhelmed, and someone was attempting to access restricted areas that had been sealed for years. Impossible, Zalex muttered as he watched security feeds showing organized prisoner teams moving through the asteroid's corridors. They're coordinating like a military unit. How did they acquire this level of tactical knowledge? His lieutenant, a nervous Vorthan named Kelix, was frantically trying to re-establish communication with ground teams. Sir, we've lost contact with levels 15 through 20. The prisoners have somehow disabled our surveillance networks in the deep sections. Marcus's team reached the main power core after 6 hours of dangerous cutting work. The chamber they uncovered was breathtaking, a vast spherical space filled with crystalline energy matrices that pulsed with gentle light. At the center floated a sphere of liquid metal similar to what Marcus had seen in the navigation room, but enormous, nearly 10 meters in diameter. The primary control node, whispered Dr. Yenna, the Zalarian physicist who had joined their conspiracy. Her species' natural harmony with crystalline structures made her invaluable for interfacing with the ship's alien technology. This is where we can reactivate the ship's main systems. Marcus approached the central sphere carefully, remembering his previous encounter with the ship's security protocols. As he drew near, displays materialized around the chamber, showing system status information in the adaptive script that adjusted itself to each reader's comprehension. Critical authorization required appeared on the main display. Ship activation protocols demand confirmation of emergency status. Warning: activation will consume significant power and may be detected by external monitoring systems. Marcus placed his hand on the identity scanner. Marcus Chun, authorizing emergency activation. We are escaping hostile forces and require immediate departure capability. The scanner pulsed, analyzing not just his biometrics, but somehow reading his intentions. After a moment that felt like an eternity, text appeared that made Marcus's heart race. Emergency status confirmed. Hostile forces detected in ship interior. Beginning defensive activation sequence. Warning: ship integrity remains at 14%. Recommend immediate departure from current location to minimize detection risk. Throughout the ancient vessel, dormant systems began awakening for the first time in millennia. Power flowed through channels that had been dark for longer than human civilization had existed. Life support systems activated in previously sealed sections. Gravity generators hummed to life, providing standard artificial gravity throughout the ship's inhabited areas. The effect on the prisoners was immediate and dramatic. Those working in the deepest levels suddenly found themselves breathing clean, fresh air instead of the recycled atmosphere they had endured for years. Chambers that had been inaccessible behind collapsed sections were suddenly opened as the ship's internal repair systems began functioning. But the activation also triggered every security alarm in the Galactic Authority's monitoring network. Warden Zalex watched in horror as energy readings from the asteroid spiked beyond anything in recorded history. "Give me a direct communication link to Galactic Command," he ordered. "Tell them we have a Category 1 security breach at Kepler 442c. The prisoners have somehow accessed ancient technology, and the entire asteroid is showing massive power fluctuations." Kellix was frantically working at his control station. "Sir, I'm trying, but something is interfering with our communication arrays. It's like the asteroid itself is jamming our signals." The jamming was indeed coming from the ship's defensive systems. Gex and his team had successfully integrated the facility's communication equipment with the ancient ship's networks, giving them control over all external communications. The Galactic Authority's orbital platforms were effectively cut off from outside contact. Marcus left Dr. Yenna to monitor the power core activation while he rushed to the navigation control center. The journey through the asteroid's corridors was surreal. Areas that had been dark and cramped were now brightly lit and spacious as the ship's systems restored optimal environmental conditions. He found Dr. Voss and his team working frantically at the navigation computers. The ancient systems were incredibly sophisticated, but their user interfaces were designed for beings who had understood technology far beyond current galactic civilization. "We're making progress," Dr. Voss reported as Marcus arrived. "The ship's star charts are amazingly detailed, but they're thousands of years old. We're trying to correlate them with current galactic positioning data to determine our exact location and plan a departure trajectory." Marcus studied the navigation displays, which showed star maps of staggering complexity. The ancient ship's builders had charted not just their local galaxy, but neighboring galaxies as well. Their technology had been capable of intergalactic travel, something that current galactic civilization could barely imagine. "How long before we can attempt departure?" Marcus asked. "The ship's systems are still running diagnostics," Dr. Voss replied. According to these readouts, the faster-than-light drive needs approximately 18 hours to complete its startup sequence. But there's a problem. The ship's hull integrity is worse than we thought. We can't survive high-speed travel in our current condition. Marcus felt his hopes crashing. They had succeeded in activating the ancient ship, but if it couldn't actually travel, they were trapped in a slightly more comfortable prison. Wait, Dr. Yenna's voice crackled over their communication system. The ship's repair systems are activating. I'm seeing massive power flows to the hull restoration networks. The vessel is attempting to repair itself. Throughout the asteroid, an incredible transformation was taking place. Microscopic repair nanites, dormant for millennia, were awakening and beginning to restore the ship's damaged hull. Mining tunnels were being sealed and reinforced. Structural damage was being corrected. The ancient vessel was literally rebuilding itself. But the repair process was attracting unwanted attention. On the orbital platforms, Galactic Authority sensors were detecting energy patterns unlike anything in their databases. Warden Zalex realized that whatever the prisoners had awakened was beyond his ability to contain. Prepare the emergency evacuation shuttles, he ordered. If that asteroid is about to explode or tear itself apart, I want our personnel clear of the blast radius. The warden's caution was well-founded. The ship's repair systems were drawing enormous amounts of energy from its fusion reactors, and the power output was steadily climbing. But Marcus and his team knew they weren't looking at an impending explosion. They were watching the resurrection of the most advanced spacecraft ever discovered. The real crisis came when the Galactic Authority's external monitoring stations detected the anomalous readings from Kepler 442c. Automated alert systems triggered emergency protocols, and within hours a patrol fleet was dispatched to investigate. Kellex intercepted the fleet's approach communications. Sir, 3 Authority cruisers are en route to our position. Estimated arrival time is 36 hours. They're coming to investigate the power anomalies. Zalex felt his blood turn cold. If the Authority discovered that his prison asteroid was actually an ancient starship, there would be questions he couldn't answer. His career would be over, and he might find himself joining the prisoners he had overseen. Inside the ship, Marcus received the same intelligence through their intercepted communications. The prisoners had perhaps 36 hours before facing the full might of the Galactic Authority military. Their ancient ship was powerful, but they had no idea how it would perform in actual combat against modern weapons. Can we be ready to depart before they arrive? Marcus asked Dr. Voss. The physicist studied his displays carefully. The faster-than-light drive will be ready in 18 hours, but the hull repairs might take twice that long. We're looking at a race against time. Marcus made a decision that would define everything that followed. Then, we prepare for both possibilities. If we can leave peacefully, excellent. If not, we find out just how advanced this ancient technology really is. The next 24 hours were the most intense of Marcus's life. Work crews labored around the clock to assist the ship's repair systems. Technical teams studied the vessel's defensive capabilities, trying to understand weapons systems that predated current galactic civilization by thousands of years. Logistics teams prepared for the possibility of housing hundreds of prisoners during an extended space voyage. Most importantly, Marcus worked with the ship's computer systems to understand their destination options. The ancient star charts showed uninhabited worlds beyond Galactic Authority space, planets that could potentially support human and alien life. If they could escape successfully, they would have options for building new lives far from the oppressive government that had condemned them. But first, they had to survive the next 12 hours. The Galactic Authority patrol fleet was approaching, and Marcus was about to discover whether human determination and ancient technology could overcome the most powerful military force in known space. The asteroid that had been their prison was about to become their weapon, their shield, and their salvation. And Marcus Chun, the engineer who had refused to accept the impossible, was going to test just how much the universe was willing to bend to human will. The Galactic Authority patrol fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system like harbingers of doom. 3 massive cruisers, each over 2 kilometers in length and bristling with enough firepower to destroy a small moon, took formation around the asteroid mining facility that was no longer quite what it appeared to be. Captain Theron Vex commanded the flagship Dominion's Will, a state-of-the-art vessel representing the pinnacle of galactic authority military technology. His orders were clear: investigate the anomalous energy readings, secure any valuable technology, and eliminate any threats to authority control. The fact that the asteroid was a prison facility filled with condemned criminals only made his job easier. Scan the asteroid, Vex ordered as his ships settled into attack formation. I want to know what's generating those power readings. If the prisoners have somehow accessed dangerous technology, we'll need to contain it immediately. Inside the ancient ship, Marcus watched the approaching fleet on displays that showed every detail of the enemy vessels with startling clarity. The ship's sensor systems were incredibly sophisticated, capable of analyzing the Authority ship's weapon configurations, shield frequencies, and tactical capabilities in real time. 3 heavy cruisers, Dr. Voss reported from his position at the tactical station. Combined crew complement of approximately 15,000 beings. Each ship carries planet-killing weaponry and is protected by military-grade deflector shields. Marcus studied the tactical readouts with growing concern. Even with their advanced technology, fighting 3 modern warships seemed suicidal. But the ship's computer systems were displaying information that offered a glimmer of hope. The ship's defensive systems are powering up, Dr. Yenna announced from the main power core. I'm seeing energy flows to weapon systems that aren't even showing on our current technical databases. This vessel was built for combat on a scale we can barely comprehend. The first sign of the ancient ship's awakening came when the approaching Authority vessels suddenly lost sensor contact with their target. One moment they were scanning a mundane asteroid. The next moment their sensors showed empty space where the mining facility should have been. Report. Captain Vex demanded as his bridge crew struggled to re-establish sensor contact. Unknown, sir, his sensor operator replied. The asteroid appears to be generating some kind of interference field. Our targeting systems can't lock onto it. What the Authority ships were encountering was far beyond simple interference. The ancient ship's defensive systems included technology that could bend space-time itself, making the vessel effectively invisible to most forms of sensor detection. It was a defensive measure designed to protect against weapons and enemies that no longer existed. Inside the ship, Marcus was coordinating with teams across all levels of the vessel. The transformation from mining facility to Starship was nearly complete, but they still needed several more hours before the faster-than-light drive would be ready for interstellar travel. Can we communicate with them? Marcus asked Dr. Voss. Maybe we can buy time by negotiating. Worth trying, Dr. Voss agreed. The longer we can delay a direct confrontation, the better our chances of escaping intact. Marcus activated the ship's communication systems, sending a transmission on standard galactic authority frequencies. Authority vessels. This is Marcus Chun speaking for the liberated population of Kepler, 442c. We are prepared to negotiate for a peaceful departure from this system. The response from Captain Vex was immediate and uncompromising. Unknown vessel, you are commanded to surrender immediately. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. You have 10 minutes to comply. Peaceful departure isn't an option, Marcus told his command team. They're not interested in negotiation. Gex, monitoring the Authority ship's communication frequencies, detected something alarming. They're calling for reinforcements. Additional ships are being dispatched from 3 different systems. We could be facing a dozen warships within 48 hours. The situation was spiraling beyond their worst-case scenarios. Marcus realized they had perhaps minutes before the Authority ships opened fire, and their only hope lay in technology they barely understood. Activate all defensive systems, Marcus ordered, and find out what kind of weapons this ship carries. The answer came from an unexpected source. Torvin, the elderly Krillian who had become their intelligence expert, had been exploring the ship's database systems. Despite his age and the decades of hard labor that had broken his body, his mind remained sharp and analytical. The ship's weapon systems are based on principles that current galactic civilization has never developed, Torvin reported over the communication network. Quantum disruption cannons that can tear apart matter at the subatomic level. Gravitational manipulators that can crush enemy vessels without touching them. Energy projection systems that can drain power from hostile ships. Marcus felt a chill of both excitement and terror. They had access to weapons that could potentially destroy the Authority fleet, but using such devastating technology would make them fugitives on a galactic scale. The Galactic Authority would never stop hunting them. The decision was taken out of his hands when Captain Vex, frustrated by the asteroid's sensor-defeating capabilities, ordered his ships to open fire on the general area where the mining facility should be located. The first barrage of plasma cannons and antimatter torpedoes struck the ship's defensive shields with explosive fury. But instead of the devastating impact that should have destroyed an asteroid mining facility, the weapons simply dissipated against barriers of folded space-time that absorbed and redirected the energy harmlessly into subspace. Impossible, Captain Vex breathed as his most powerful weapons proved completely ineffective. What are we dealing with? Inside the ancient ship, Marcus felt the structure around him respond to the attack like a living thing awakening from slumber. Warning displays appeared throughout the vessel, and the ship's artificial intelligence spoke for the first time in a voice that seemed to resonate through the hull itself. Hostile forces detected. Defensive protocols activated. Recommendation: eliminate threats to ensure crew survival. Wait, Marcus said, addressing the ship directly. Can we disable them without destroying them? We don't want to start a war. The ship's AI seemed to consider this request. Non-lethal suppression possible. Warning: enemy vessels are calling for reinforcements. Recommend immediate departure to avoid extended engagement. Marcus made the most difficult decision of his life. Disable their ships. Minimum force necessary. What followed was a demonstration of technology so advanced that it seemed like magic to observers aboard the Authority vessels. The ancient ship materialized out of its invisibility field like a cosmic leviathan emerging from the depths of space. 50 kilometers of alien architecture covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly, bristling with weapon systems that defied comprehension. The ship's response to the Authority attack was swift and precise. Beams of coherent gravitational force reached out across the void, not to destroy the enemy vessels, but to systematically disable them. Engine systems failed as their antimatter containment fields were destabilized. Weapon systems shut down as their power conduits were severed by focused gravitational shear. Life support remained functional, but the ships were rendered completely helpless. Captain Vex found himself commanding a dead ship drifting in space, watching in awe and terror as the impossible vessel prepared to depart. His final transmission was a warning to Galactic Command. Unknown superweapon has neutralized our fleet. Vessel appears to be of pre-galactic origin. Do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. But the ancient ship's demonstration of power had consequences that Marcus and his fellow escapees couldn't foresee. Throughout the galaxy, automated monitoring stations detected the gravitational disturbances caused by the ship's weapons. Within hours, every major government, corporation, and military organization in known space was aware that something unprecedented had occurred in the Kepler 442 system. As the ship's faster-than-light drive finally came online, Marcus stood in the main control room, surrounded by displays showing star charts of unimaginable scope. They had succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. They were free, they had the most advanced ship in the galaxy, and they had destinations beyond the reach of any pursuit. But freedom came with a price. The Galactic Authority would mobilize every resource to recapture them. Other governments would want to study or steal their technology. They were no longer prisoners. They were the most wanted fugitives in galactic history. Where do we go? Kira asked as the ship's navigation systems showed dozens of potential destinations. Marcus studied the ancient star charts, looking for worlds that could support their diverse population while remaining hidden from galactic civilization. The ship's database contained information about uninhabited systems beyond the galactic rim, planets that could be terraformed using the vessel's advanced technology. We go where no one can follow, Marcus decided. We find a new home, and we build something better than what we left behind. The ship's AI chimed with what almost sounded like approval. Destination selection confirms optimum survival strategy. Initiating departure sequence. As space folded around them, and the ancient ship disappeared into the impossible depths of hyperspace, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. They had entered the asteroid mine as condemned prisoners facing a slow death. They were leaving as the crew of the most advanced spacecraft ever discovered, bound for a new life among the stars. The Galactic Authority thought they had sent criminals to die in an asteroid mine. Instead, they had given humanity and its allies access to technology that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. And Marcus Chun, the human engineer who refused to accept the impossible, had proven that sometimes the greatest victories came from the most desperate circumstances.